Are you a car enthusiast or a do-it-yourself mechanic? Boy, do I have a deal for you. I have found a place that believes in what I believe in. They stand for conservative values. They don't go after that woke agenda. Plus, they have the best prices in auto parts. Get your parts where I get them, Kane Auto Supply. No more running around town trying to find the right parts. They're on their way to me. Why wait? Get your auto parts shipped directly to you, fastest and the best prices. Kane Auto Supply, a proud sponsor of the Get Over It podcast.
Do you know Jonathan Bond?
Yes.
When he was younger, but he was old enough to drive, and he was going somewhere. His mom and his brother was in a different car together, and they heard on the radio that there had been a fatal car accident on a certain road. They didn't tell who it was. They just wanted people to avoid that road. And she said, "That's Jonathan." And she had him drive her to this hospital. She went in, and she said, "My son's was in a car wreck," and gave the name. They had the doctor come out and talk to her. And he says, "I'm sorry. He's passed away. He's whatever the morgue is downstairs at a hospital." And she goes, "Do you believe in God?" And he goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Will you pray with me?" And of course he did, because here's a lady just lost her son.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the doctor gets a call from the nurse and said, "He's alive."
Wow.
What are the odds? There's no odds. This is God.
Hello, comedian Mickey Bell again with another Get Over It podcast. I'm so glad that you are joining us today. Hey, you know what I ask you every time? Be sure to like, comment, and share. Please leave us a good review, because that just helps us boost the show for more people to enjoy what you are enjoying every week. Listen, okay, I may fangirl a little bit. That's what my wife says. I may fangirl a little bit, because as a young boy, I remember growing up and watching Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell Sisters show. It came on every Saturday night, and I would be glued to that television set to see them and to watch them perform. I was mesmerized by their musicianship, but just everything they did. I was so in. I mean, I was locked in, and I probably had a crush on them as well. Today, Irlene Mandrell is in the studio, and we're going to talk about her book, we're going to talk about miracles, and we're going to talk about the Mandrell Show. Hey, it's time right now. You ready? Time to get over it. She is with us. I have been waiting for this moment. Thank you for being with us.
I'm thrilled that you let me come in and chat with you. I know you have so many people that want to talk to you.
I just love it. I have been, when they wanted me to do this podcast, I said, okay, I will do it, but there's certain people that I've got to have on the show, and you were one of the top people
thank you.
that I wanted to have, because I grew up, of course, like you hear everyone else, I grew up watching the Mandrell Sisters show.
Thank you.
And I was raised in a very independent, strict Baptist church. So watching TV was kind of limited. So your show was one of the only musical type shows, that and Hee Haw, that I could watch.
Thanks. And I had the pleasure of doing Hee Haw.
You got to do both.
The last 8 years of it.
I saw you on both. So what was it like doing the Mandrell Show?
Oh, it was really, really neat, because my sisters and I grew up playing music together. Barbara had the show. Louise and I were part of the original Do Rights, which was the name of her band.
Yes.
And we just had hours, as you know, because you travel right in the bus and do the tours. When you're with your family or anybody and you get up in the mornings, the first thing you do, you sit around like the kitchen nook,
right,
and you visit, and you're there all day, and you're talking and telling stories. And talk about bonding with your family.
Yeah.
It's better than just a dinner every night, which a lot of people don't do, but if you can get together for dinner, it's nice. But constant, we were just so close. So by the time the show happened, we weren't working together anymore. Louise had a band in her own right. I was doing some modeling, and Barbara called up and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a national television show with Louise and I?" And I was like, yes. Let me think about it. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we got back together again, it was constant rehearsals all day and learning, and it was like going back in time, and yet experiencing something that was so awesome and new in a way too.
Yeah.
So it was the best of times. Barbara says we had the best home movies as anybody, you know.
Professional recordings of y'all just being able to have fun
We
and
have to
act
get
out
them
on
off
stage.
of VHS.
Yeah. Now you have to convert them. It was so fun. I just sitting here looking at you, my mind's just going back to those memories of what I call the instrumental portions of the show, where y'all would play all the different instruments, and you would just be. That was just the highlight of my life.
I actually had to learn a couple instruments for that because I grew up playing drums, and being on drums, pretty well stuck on drums. Especially I started at 11, you know, on the road.
Yeah.
And Louise had played fiddle and bass, and so she'd switch around and do some things, and she later also accordion. But Barbara played everything.
Right.
So I was pretty well on drums. Well, the show, they started coming out with how many instruments we played on these the reviews and stuff. And they're saying, this week, guess what? You're playing mandolin. So I'd learned some chords and stuff. And of course, you hear, if I'm not finger picking and doing it, just playing, you can hear the chord changes, and I could strum, you know, because I'm a drummer. But then I learned the xylophones, and that was fun. I kind of stuck with that sound for a while. And we kept adding new, like, what else can you play? I can learn.
So the show taught you many instruments.
Yes, it did. Although Barbara, she was a teenager when my dad had a music store in Oceanside, California. And she'd come in, and she learned steel guitar in less than a year and was playing professionally. Wow. Nobody does that, you know, pedals. And she could play a lot of instruments. Anyway, saxophone she learned in junior high. And she went to the high school band, and even though she was in junior high and stuff like that, she was kind of a prodigy, I think, musical prodigy. And she would go into the music store, and Dad would be talking to someone, and he'd say, Barbara, come here. And he'd have her play something. He goes, have you ever played that before? And she goes, no. But she'd take a second, she'd play it. He goes, how hard can it be?
Oh, my goodness. So she was selling instruments.
Yes.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
That was good. So the show, whenever y'all started doing the show, y'all just... I don't know. It was just fun from start to finish. There was never a dull moment. It was funny. And the music, of course, very talented. But that kind of it allowed us to come into your life. And where you didn't really know all of us, we kind of got to know you. So it's like you all became part of our family.
Thank you.
And that was very, very fun to watch.
Well, we had 12 writers when we got there. They took a couple weeks. We got there a couple weeks early to kind of learned to dance because we weren't dancers. And I was not a solo drummer, but I learned to solo every week, you know. And so we went in early to learn things, but the writers got to know who we were. And then they kind of exaggerate. Like, okay, Barbara's bossy because she's the oldest, but we'll make bossy jokes and whatever. But the dinginess, just natural.
Well, I was sitting here, and for the last couple of minutes, I've been thinking, all right, do I bring this up? Do I not bring it up? Is it a touchy subject? So you were portrayed as the one that was kind of ditzy, dingy.
I loved it because I just like laughing about things anyway. Now I've grown up, and still my daughters act like I'm the dingy one. They're blondes. It's not that, you know, and I laugh. I'm getting older and forgetful, but, you know, I've always been forgetful. I'm better now. I try to pay attention now. I never did before, you know, so I loved it. And the show was so cool, too, because I love the good nights, the comedy, but ending with a gospel, a Christian song, Barbara fought for that.
Really?
Because it was NBC, a network. They weren't used to that in a country show. And she said, I know my audience, we may not be necessarily a Christian, a gospel show, but country music audiences, they love God and they love Jesus, and I do, and I'm not doing the show unless I can do this.
Wow.
And she stuck with it, and so she got that.
That is so cool. Yeah, I can remember y'all doing some stuff with the Statler brothers.
Yeah.
Going out and doing it. Was just
we
memories just
had some
flooding back. I'm telling you.
routines with them.
I'm telling you, memories just keep flooding back the whole time I sit here.
Well, on the show, one of the skits was, Richie Kissy for Richard Dawson back then had the show, and Harold played that, and we did that. But years later passed after we were not doing the show, and in Nashville they had Family Feud.
Family Feud, okay.
And so we played against the Statlers. Plus, Brenda Lee was an honorary Statler because they needed one more person. And I love Brenda, and the family does. And then my mom and dad and the three of us girls. We won every time. It was because Richard, he'd always go with, no, I got the answer.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun, especially doing it with mom and dad. You know,
Yeah.
it was really cool.
So when the show was over and you had to kind of progress into something new, what was your mindset then, and what were your goals?
Well, I stayed out because I had started some acting classes and improvs and stuff like that in California. So I stayed out there and did that. Worked on the road a little bit with the Croft puppets. They made it where they could tour. And then just felt like it was time to come back. I think they were having something going on in California anyway. It was getting crazy. And so I don't know if it was the Olympics, maybe it was back then, years ago. But anyway, I came back and I had been talking about doing Hee Haw, which was by this time had left California. It had started in California, but taping in Nashville.
Right.
And I wanted to start a family. Actually, before the show, can I share
Yes,
what I think is a
absolutely.
miracle? Right before the show, like about 3 months before the show, I had a miscarriage. I was about 5 months along. And my husband had said, wait, because the baby, you know, your body has to recoup. I said, no, I'm in that mood, you know, I want to have a baby. So it wasn't a deal I made with God. People say, you made a deal with
Yeah.
God. I said, no, I just kind of wanted a way of knowing, you know, because some people I know people hear his voice audibly, you know, and stuff, but just a way of knowing. If I'm not supposed to have a baby right away, I had just gotten my composite for modeling, handing it out. So I'll get some modeling work,
Yeah.
and then I'll know I should wait. So I did. I got some really cool stuff, like really quick, and which is not normal.
Right.
And had to try out like banana shoes for CoverGirl, and did all this stuff within like a month or so. And then I get that call from Barbara. Do you want to do a national TV show? So went out and did the show. So God just guides you. I mean, you make your choices, but he'll guide you. So after the show, by this time, I said, I'm ready. I want a family. So I went back and I talked to Sam Lavello. Sam Lavello was a creator of Hee Haw with my dad. My dad went there, and they were real close friends. And I had been a guest star, so I knew Sam. And I said, I'm going to be honest with you. Before I start this, I want to start a family. And he's like, I'm Italian. We love kids. Look at all the girls have kids. What do you think the cornfield's for?
Oh, that's so good.
So I got my own spot, which was the Cornfield County operator. And you can see kind of sometimes I look a little bigger in the outfit than others. I had my two oldest kids while I was on Hee Haw,
Wow.
Derek and Vanessa, and then my younger one, Christina, later years. But with the family and doing Hee Haw and stuff, I still went out and did projects, you know, as far as, you know, endorsing products and different things like that. It's just like now I'm doing more singing. I actually didn't record. My sisters were so great, and I was doing some modeling and some other things, and I just thought, yeah, I'm not going to try to get into recording and stuff like that. And it wasn't until it was about 7, 8 years ago. I have to remember how long I've been married. It's coming up on 8 or 9 years. I was dating my husband, Pat Holt, who is a record producer.
Okay.
He talks about some of his early days engineering was back with Dr. Hook and Conway and Loretta. So he's been in Nashville for a lot of years and stuff. And I knew all that. We had met before and had some mutual friends, and he's friends with my first husband and other people. And for some reason, I didn't know I was going to his studio, but I met him in his studio doing a favor for somebody that was working in his studio. So we got reminiscing and later, you know, started visiting. So he went with me to a meeting that I was having because I would like to do charities for veterans. I love the military and stuff. And they said something about, well, you can sell your CD. And I'm like, you've known me a long time. You know I don't have a CD. Next thing I know, Pat's over, like, touching my shoulder. Hey, honey, I can help you with that.
Yeah.
So we started on this CD that's called, it's patriotic, called Thanks to You, because we're thinking the veterans, military, first responders, and things like that, which both, and at our age, all of our dads were in World War II because they all had to fight. But that plus Pat's was Vietnam Air Force and stuff like that. So we'd listen to these songs. We spent about 2 years just putting together songs, and he cried too. I mean, we'd listen to songs and cry because the lyrics were so touching.
Yeah.
And whether it be military or then gospel songs, I like the songs that make me cry because it's a cleansing.
Yeah,
right?
most definitely.
So we started doing that, and then later came out with the CD after we got married. We worked on it 2 years, but it was something that brought us really even closer.
Oh,
it's really
that is
cool.
So good. That's a
So
great
then,
story.
Yeah, so then I started recording some with him and going out and working some single dates with bands that you pick up and stuff like that. So I do that, not all the time, but once in a while.
You still have to scratch that itch, right, of performing?
Well, I get on stage and you feel at home.
Yeah.
And the people that you talked about that were close, that knew us from the TV show that we didn't know because it was TV.
Right.
I grew up, we'd work these fairs. I was playing drums, and Barbara, we used to feel sorry for her, but I mean, she was doing interviews. I love doing interviews. But Louise and I, we were riding the rides at the fairs and all that.
While she was working.
Yeah. So, and we'd play the show. Well, people out there knew us that had watched the show because the outdoor show at a fair and stuff like that. So we always felt close to people in that respect anyway. It was funny. We always felt like people knew us and their family, and we talk a lot, like you can tell. And the show aired, and Louise and I had been we were raised in California, born in Texas, but raised in California. And we'd go to Disneyland as a kid. So the show aired. Then we found a day to go to Disneyland. And Barbara didn't go. Louise and I went to ride the rides. And we're standing there, and some people came up, and they knew us from the show. And they walked away, and we looked at each other and said, "We've made it." They know us at
Because you got
Disneyland.
recognized at Disneyland.
Yeah.
That is so good. When I was struggling with my mental health, one of the biggest obstacles I had to overcome was being willing to talk to someone. And for some of you, you may be in that same state where you don't want to leave your home. You don't trust anyone in your community that you can talk with. I want to introduce you to BetterHelp. They have licensed therapists that is able to take you and actually talk to you via Zoom so you can do it from the comfort of your own home. These are licensed therapists. You can talk about faith or you can not talk about faith. It doesn't matter. They're going to have something specific just for you. If you would like to receive a 10% discount for your first initial call, all you got to do is check out BetterHelp in the show notes below. Of course, we talk a lot about your success, and between you and Louise and Barbara, just the entire family, just a staple in country music. And the people know that side of you, but you've also had some things you've had to overcome, some struggles that you fight through that comes with the success. And you fought through some of that stuff as well.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a struggle sometimes because you have to fight through your own emotions that people don't see.
Yeah, because when I'm out there now, and the show was so long ago and they don't recognize me, it's very sad. I'm used to people coming up saying, "Hey, we love you. We're like family." No, but let me talk about the book. Okay, so I wrote this book, and it's been, I don't know, it's been a few years back, maybe 5 years ago. And it was because there was talk about more miracles. Yeah, a lot of, most miracles start out as a crisis, right? That's how they become a miracle. Most of it's other parts of the family, even before I was born, and maybe some extended family. But I had these stories, and I wanted to share them. And I have a co-author, Don Tomlinson, who is also a songwriter, Christian songwriter, and he was recording with my husband, and he offered to help. And I said, "You teach me." And I basically put the pictures together in the stories, and they bought me a program. I loved it because it was all our old pictures of the family and going through it. And he said, "I'll teach you." And I said, You're teaching me how to put all this together. So, but it's my stories because they're family stories.
Wow.
A lot of people have them in their families and they don't remember them. But stories that I wouldn't have been here had they not happened the way God made them happen. One of the ones that I loved that I wouldn't have been here, people got married really young. Mom was 16 and she married Dad. And because of their belief, Dad was with his brother, and Dad loved music, was playing guitar and all that after World War II. And so they traveled from Arkansas to Illinois, where my mom's brother had a church. And Mom would play piano and stuff. And Dad fell in love with her, and he came back, I guess a few months later, and they got married, and they traveled for a while. They ended up in Texas, which they didn't really have family there, but just from the job and traveling where they wanted to be in Houston. So Mom, expecting getting ready to give birth on Christmas Eve. They went to, it was we're not Catholic and nothing against Catholic, but we're not, but it was a Catholic hospital. And I guess they were kind of focused on Mass and different things like that. And Mom said it seemed like everything was fine. And then all of a sudden it wasn't. And the doctor told my dad, he said, I don't think that I certainly can't save the baby. And I don't see how I'm going to save your wife either. I don't think I can save either one of them. So Dad was out in the hallway, and knowing Dad, he's praying. But he being in World War II, they give each other nicknames. And my dad's passed away, but his name is Irby. And being from Arkansas, they nicknamed him Arby. And all of a sudden he hears, Arby, is that you, Arby? And that was so weird. So he turned around, and my dad in the Navy was a pharmacist mate. And it happened to be the doctor that he served under on those beaches, like D-Day, under the worst circumstances ever. He served under this guy.
Yes.
And even if the guy is a doctor in that hospital that they randomly ended up at, to me, it's a miracle that he saw my dad.
Yeah.
He wasn't even looking at him. My dad didn't even see him. He didn't know he was there. So he asked Dad what was wrong, and he said, well, I have to talk to the doctor that's got your case. He turned out to be the doctor in charge, but he still needed, because he was assigned a doctor. He came back, and something you can't do these days, he said, I'm taking over. I'm going to want you to assist me like you used to, because we work so well together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my mom didn't come too for a couple of days, but on Christmas the next day, my sister Barbara was born.
And your dad got to help.
Yes.
That is
so
amazing.
Barbara's like a Christmas, to me, Christmas miracle. And then my mom's name is Mary. Daddy used to say, and he's a wise man. So that's my Christmas story.
My goodness, the fact that he helped save both lives. I would have never let my child forget that. You know what I mean?
I would read that. I would tell that story before I had the book to my kids and said, if I wouldn't have been here, if we'd lost Mom and you wouldn't have been here.
Right.
But God, I don't think the miracle is as much being able to save the lives as God putting certain people out of nowhere in your life at a time you need them most.
Oh, that's good.
And there's a lot of that in the story, in the book. It's made up of a lot of stories and a lot of pictures of the family and stuff. I want to write another one because I started doing a radio podcast and for about 3 years, Renegade Radio. And since Captain Jack isn't doing that now, my daughter Vanessa's doing a podcast on IrleneMandrell.com. You can get to the link through that. And Irlene, by the way, is like, my dad was Irby, I-R-B-Y. Anyone that's like listening, Irlene is I-R-L-N-E because I was named after an Irby and not an Earl. But we are going to start eventually doing video podcasts. But the thing about telling these miracles is that it's great in a book, but if you can hear someone tell their own story, even
being
the
able to
audio,
hear
but and the visuals
good.
Even better. So it's going to be fun to do that.
That is so cool. So whenever you talk about miracles and you talk about God, can you just talk about, just for a moment, just if there's an individual that's listening or watching what we're doing now and they see you and they're like, man, I grew up with her. How important is God in your life?
I never could understand how people could, when you have kids and you love your kids, you love your family, how he could ask, love me first more. I mean, love everybody like you love yourself, but you love him more. And the more you learn, the more you read, the more you want to read, the more you want to learn, the stronger your relationship. It's not just about praying. He's there all the time. He's there to talk to. People can see me talking to myself, right? Yeah. But I'm not. I'm talking to God. And you finally understand, God's first. But when he's first, you don't love them less, you love them more.
Yeah.
So you don't give up anything. You just keep getting more and more because the love within you and the Holy Spirit within you lets you love more than you even, I didn't know I could love them more, but I do.
That is so good. And of course, people may not know, but you've got how many grandchildren again?
Well, I've got two, but I've got one on the way.
One on the way. So when is the new one coming?
She's due on Valentine's Day.
Wow.
Well, I actually say I have two grandchildren. I also have a step-granddaughter. So Pat has a daughter that was born on Valentine's Day.
Wow.
And then she has a granddaughter that's also 3, like my grandson that's 3. Wyatt's 3, my grandson. My step-granddaughter is Mia. And then my other daughter has a daughter that's 7, and that's Blakely. Pat's daughter had been in a terrible wreck, and I knew her in middle school. She knew my kids. She'd come over once in a while, and she'd say, "Dad said to tell you hi," and I'd say, "Tell him hi." I didn't make the connection until we started dating. That was Heather. I mean, when she came back and the kids got together again, she and my daughter, my oldest daughter, hugged and cried because they were back together again. They hadn't seen each other in years. But Heather, Pat's daughter, had been in a car wreck. Didn't know if she would survive, was airlifted out and crushed. And they said she wouldn't walk again. Well, she did. She was in our wedding. She walks. She does great. But he always said one thing. They said because everything was crushed below, miracle she's walking. He goes, but she'll never be able to carry or have a child. She has Mia. Mia's 3, and everything's great.
Oh, wow.
So that, to me, that's an amazing miracle,
So
too.
you're just all about highlighting miracles. I love it.
I think people forget, like, you know that's a miracle, but a lot of people don't realize, oh, yeah.
Well, that encourages people, though, because when they hear you talking about the miracles that have happened in your life, it encourages them when they're believing for something to happen that, you know what, God can come through for me, too.
You know, and some miracles are like, oh, that was amazing. Wow. And you'll be talking to people about miracles and they'll go, I forgot. I had, you can forget incredible miracles.
And it's not coincidence.
No.
It's God working.
Yeah.
It's God working.
There's some that you go, what are the odds? And then there's some that you go, no, there is no odds. There's no way.
Right.
I have so many on the show that there was absolutely no way. I mean, people that have blue lined and they had the tags on their toes.
Oh, my goodness.
Things like that. But people stuck with it and had faith.
That is so encouraging. And you're bringing so much encouragement to people. And I love it that you're sharing your stories and you're sharing the miracles in the book, God Reigns Miracles. And it's just what? Miracle after miracle after miracle.
It is some people say it's not. There are categories of miracles and there's categories of blessings. I just put them all as miracles. So some are stronger than others. But I think I need to come out with a new book because I have so many from doing the radio show. Like I had an uncle that had a tag on his toe that it was dead and in the hallway back when he was the preacher. He was the one that, had the church.
Wow.
So someone walked by and then they heard something and he turned out he was alive, but he'd been prayed for. And he did so much in his life for so many people even after that. So, I mean, he needed to be here.
Yeah.
Right. And he's passed on since. But now I get so many people that really were not alive that the doctors had said they're dead. I had one lady that said, the doctor said, I don't want to go on and on and on
No,
forever.
you're good. No, that's
okay.
that's encouraging.
Do you know Jonathan Bond?
Yes. Yes.
He may want to tell his own miracle.
Yeah,
on
I
your
know
show
Jonathan.
one day.
Yeah.
Can I tell his
Go ahead and
miracle?
tell it.
Because he was on the radio show, and I'm going to, do a book. And he has so many books that you guys can read. But I'm sure it was a long time ago when he was younger. But he was old enough to drive, and he was going somewhere. And there was on the radio, his mom and his brother was in the car, a different car together, and they heard on the radio that there had been a fatal car accident on a certain road. They didn't tell the car or who it was. They just wanted people to avoid that road. And she said, that's Jonathan. And he said, no, he's not supposed to be in that area. He's over at so-and-so today. She goes, no, that's Jonathan. And she had him drive her to this hospital. And she went in, and she said, my son's was in a car wreck, and gave the name. And she had the doctor. They had the doctor come out and talk to her. And he says, I'm sorry. He's passed away. He's in the whatever the morgue is downstairs at a hospital. And she goes, do you believe in God? And he goes, yeah. She goes, will you pray with me? And of course he did, because here's a lady just lost her son.
Yeah.
And she prayed that everything was fine, that he was alive, and he was great. And all of a sudden, the doctor gets a call from the nurse and said, he's alive. So then later, he's on all of this equipment, and he says, but maybe it would have been better if he'd have died because, he won't, his mind being gone that long. She goes, you still believe in God, right?
Wow.
They prayed, and he should have been in there forever. He wouldn't even get in the wheelchair to leave the hospital. Just a couple weeks later, he walked. He goes, nope, devil wants me in that wheelchair. I'm walking out of here. These are like, there are no odds. These are not like, what are the odds? There's no odds. This is God.
You're right.
And so when you get to hear these stories all the time, you're not surprised, but you're really happy to hear them.
And that's the whole purpose of this show, is just to be able to let people know that no matter what they're going through, no matter what they're faced with right now, that they actually have a resource that they can put their faith in.
Absolutely.
That will get them through some of the toughest times. And sometimes I think we're so close to our own problems that we can't see the big picture of God actually orchestrating, because I do believe the scripture when he says he causes all things to work together for our good. And we may be so close to the situation that we may not understand it or see it for ourselves. But then after the fact, and I think that's why it's so important for things like this, because he talks about that we should share our testimonies because there's power in that.
Yes.
So you're giving out great power.
And he does give us choice.
Yeah.
But I've seen over and over choices that were not great that he would do, or like you're talking about orchestrating, he will make something wonderful come out of a terrible decision that wasn't his. It was from us.
Right.
And he will make good come out of it. You just have to give it to God and listen and follow.
That is so good. So what's next for you? You talked about possibly doing another book because you got the stories, but what else do you want to accomplish?
I'm doing the podcast now with actually kind of getting a little lazy because I have so many from when I did the radio show. We didn't put them out there.
Right.
So now we're putting some of the old radio show podcast out.
Good deal.
But I want to do a video podcast like you're doing, the video, because I think with the miracles, it's even stronger for them to see the people.
Oh, absolutely.
I have people crying, and I'm seeing them. I usually do it by Zoom, or if I get with them, it's still, I get to see them.
Yeah, you get to experience it.
And,
Feel it.
and you can hear some of it in the voice, but it's not the same as seeing their eyes and seeing their reaction. And this is people who came from, so many people are giving up. And you see, no.
Yeah.
If you give up, you don't get the miracle.
That is so good. Oh, this has been so good. Again, as a child that was a musician, watching you guys, I wouldn't miss it. That was the one show I would not miss. And getting to talk with you today and just seeing how God has worked in your life and how you're allowing him to use you.
Well, I've been
Very
enjoying
encouraging.
your comedy
Well,
and
thank
you so much.
Oh, that
Thank
means
you
so
for
much.
doing
I
that.
didn't even know people knew who I was. That is so good. And so, congratulations on the new grandchild that's
Thank you.
coming. That
Thank
is
you.
going to be good. So if you want more information, all you got to do is go to our show description and check out everything. We're going to give you a link to the book, the podcast, everything you need to know about Miss Irlene Mandrell is going to be found in our show description. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.